Hi, this is Jeff, the big hairy dog. Um, Probably should share my screen, huh? All right, so this is Jeff, the big hairy dog, and we'll see how this goes. All my licenses expired, I guess. I didn't notice, so I'm using a VM that's got some odd data, but it'll be fun, right? That's what we live for. We live for those exciting moments when they catch you off guard. But this is the auto utilities and in PRISM, right? So hopefully everybody's familiar with PRISM. When we log in, that's the main menu. When we go to store operations, right, we pop over to the other side, and we're getting some errors on this one too. Always good. All right, so my notes say that this is PRISM Auto Utilities, Min-Max, Auto PO, and SRO. So hopefully that's what you guys are expecting. If there's anything else, feel free to always jump in. You can always anytime you want, you can chat, you can open up your mic, you could ask questions. Certainly encourage everybody to communicate in any way that they're comfortable communicating, right? So, okay, so SRO is kind of not really an auto utility. I guess I think I would start there because that's easy to knock down. SRO is just, well, SRO stands for sold, received, and on order. And sold, received, and on order is a function, kind of like a report that feeds columns in inventory. So it's a function that can be run through the technician's toolkit and can then feed some columns in inventory. So there's a few elements to that. So let's go to merchandise inventory and let's just take a look at a screen. If I can get my screen to refresh here. Okay, let's just collapse the filter and see what we got going here. We got we got nothing. All right, excellent. So all right. Well, that's probably better in some ways so that we can see the process a little bit deeper, right? All right, so let's go put some SRO fields in here, right? So I'm going to back out to the main menu, go to admin console, and in admin console, node preferences, node selection, and of course, set my level to inside the company and above the stores, and we're going to collapse that. We don't need to see that. That's just going to be in our way now. So there's a sweet spot that's typically in the company and above the stores for setting preferences. And this is not a webinar on preferences, but we have to go here anyway, right? So grid formats is how we change screens, right? So if we go in here and hop down to inventory lookup, so this is the inventory screen as it exists right now. And on the left side are all the fields we could choose to add to the screen, right? Um, and we really want the SRO ones. I added active because I like to have active there, but let's scroll down and see what we can find here, right? All right, so on order quantity, SRO, that's the O and SRO, right? And so let's keep going down here a little bit and say there's received, there's the R, and we should have the S here any minute, right? Sold quantity, right? So I'm going to add those. I'm going to move them up. And we're going to throw those in, I don't know. That's a good neighborhood as any, right? So I'm going to move them up and put them in the screen. Then we're going to demonstrate that they are in fact there, right? So anytime you're modifying the screen, right, there's the risk that the browser is going to remember the old screen, right? So I'm going to come down here in the bottom right. We're going to save those changes to the default inventory lookup screen, save. And that should be done sometime soon, hopefully. Murphy's Law, right? two of my licenses expired like a few days ago, and I didn't notice. And I was trying to use both those machines for this webinar, and they're both expired, and they're being renewed currently, but day late and dollar short on that one, right? So let's log out and let's clear the memory on the browser, right? Um, I don't need all this stuff open in the background, so I think I will close some of that. And so on the main menu, we have to do the Control Shift Delete thing, right? And the Control Shift Delete brings up, hey, clear the cache. We clear the cache, get rid of that screen, don't need it. Then we do a Control Shift R, right? So that's Control Shift Delete and clear, and then Control Shift R, R for reset. And that resets the browser here, the local browser, right? So because we changed the PRISM server settings upstream, but we would like to see those fresh changes in inventory. So we've got to forget what we knew about the screens in the local browser, which all may go away partially when we get, they're writing on a new app for Retail Pro to house the browsing process, right? Okay, so we can see those columns, right? Here they are, SRO, sitting there in the screen. So they don't say anything. They got nothing in them, right? They're all zeros, which was true. I mean, if you've never run SRO, they would be zeros, right? So now how do we run SRO? So SRO is in the Technician's Toolkit. So we would go to um, Technician's Toolkit, and it would ask us to sign in. And we would sign into Technician's Toolkit. And we don't care. And then on the top right, under Data Utilities, there is an SRO tool in there, right? So we're going to go to the SRO tool and see what's in here. Nothing. Okay. So I'm going to say, let's make a new preset. And you can have as many of these as you want. I think we're just going to create a couple. But you could have 5 or 6 or 2 or 1 or whatever you want, right? So common common SROs would be like the last 90 days or the last year, for instance. So I would give it a name. I usually call it something like SRO 90, right? And then I'm going to go uh, click on receipts and pull the drop down menu and then say question mark days. Now, the data I have is not great, so we're not going to get any data in this data range, but I want to set up some default ones that are actually realistic before we set up one that I'll run on an older time period and see if we can get some data. So, I'm going to say 91 days start 90 days ago. Why 91 and 90? Because 91 means go back 90 days and then one more for today, include today. That's what 9190 means, right? So I'm going to say, okay. And over here on the right, it's ending on today, right? That's because these things run so fast that it's possible to rerun them over and over again in a day. They take seconds to run. So if you're running it during the day and you have half a day's worth of sales in, yeah, why not get it, right? I mean, so we're going to do the same here, 91, 90. And then, of course, on order is a very different animal. So on order, even when we change to a year in sales, on order probably won't change. I'm going to say for on order, give me 90 days, start 30 days ago. So go 30 days backwards and 60 days forward to see what I consider to be current on order, which is that's fair for current on order. I'm not seeing preseason orders. I'm not seeing old POs that I should have cleaned up and forgot to, right? So, all right, there we go. And then we can save that, right? And I'm going to say, do another new one. We'll call this one SRO 365. And I'll speed through this one a little bit faster here so we can all get. Right, so now let's make one more new one. Now let's make a new one here. New preset. Oh, wait a second. I just blew away that other one, didn't I? Nice. So everybody saw the mistake I made, which was on purpose, right? I did that on purpose. Yeah. So you guys could learn from it, right? Sure, I did. No, I didn't do it on purpose, um, but did anybody catch what I didn't do? I forgot to click the save button, right? In my haste. See if I can get it right this time. Right, you got to click the save button if you actually want to save it, right? Okay, so let's go new preset, and let's just say SRO hold. And let's say we're going to go get a date range that'll be a specific date range, and we're going to go 11 01 2022 to 01 31 2023. Okay, so I think there's data back that far back, so we'll find out here, right? 11/01 2022 to 01 31 2023, and on order, I have no idea on order if we're going to even get anything. So I think we just specific range. We'll just do the same thing. All right, and let's try saving that. Okay, so back out here, right? There's still nothing going on out here because we haven't run any of these, right? So let's pop back over to the Technician's Toolkit. So you can basically, once they're set up, you can just see them up here and load them. So I could go like that and say, hey, run that one, right? And it would just run it. It's usually much quicker than this, but my VM's running. Well, there it goes. It ran, right? So now the data here has been dead for quite a while. So even if I were to refresh this, flip the screen or something, it's not going to change real time. You're not going to see anything in here, right? I mean, we're just not. So now we'll try and see if we go to my wacko old one here, if we get anything at all, right? So we're going to try and run that one and see if that one can run in the same period of time. Hopefully, we'll see though. Um, all right, so it's just finished. Now this is a multi-store environment. This data has lots of different stores, right? So let's go back and see if we can refresh this data and see if we see anything at all in any of these. And of course, we don't. Let's see if we skip ahead a little bit, if we can get some data in there. All right, let's try this. Let's go like this and say vendor code. Let's try. And of course, I'm striking out. I'm just like striking out wonderfully. Oh, there we go. We got something finally, right? So you see this received quantity right there. That was just put in that column. And of course, if I had better data here, you would be seeing a lot more spectacular results, right? But it is cool. I mean, to have sold information in inventory while you're browsing it is very valuable, very, very cool. So especially if you're like building a PO and you're viewing the inventory screen, the other set of inventory screens, right? The document screens, and you're trying to decide whether to buy something. It's nice to be able to see right there next to the doc quantity column how many you sold and how many you already have on order, right? I mean, that's extremely powerful. And that's just designing the other inventory screen. This is the default one. The other one's the inventory screen from a document, right? So now, the only other thing I didn't cover in SRO is that if you were on like the preferred one, like say I always want to see a year rolling. So every day it drops a day and adds yesterday, right? Every day it's updating. So then I could select one of these and I could click the little clock down here at the bottom, and I could then go in and schedule this, right? So I could say, um, start on this, tomorrow, right? So we could say 10/11/2025, no end date, run daily, right? And then down here, you've got to say what days you want it to run on, right? Which typically for me would be all of them. I mean, if I'm in there on a weekend, I still want it to see it be updated, right? Um, and I think that's about it. Then I would just click save, and that would squirrel it away into the scheduled tasks, and then it would start updating every morning. I'm not going to do that on this VM. I don't even have this VM awake most of the time, so I'm going to say no. We're just not going to waste our time actually scheduling it. But the scheduling process would then mean that every morning it's fresh. So if I rerun it for 90 days and I don't feel like putting it back on a year, hey, tomorrow it'll take care of it, right? So I could have a 60-day, a 90-day, a 180, a year and a half. Depends on what you're looking at, right? If it's fast turn items, you need like 30 or 60 or 90. If it's really slow turn, high expensive items, you need a little bit more data, right? You need like a year or a year and a half. So anyway, that's SRO in a nutshell, right? And again, I'm just going to point at it. We're not going to redesign another screen, but I will point at the other screen just so we're all on the same page, right? So again, node selection inside the company, and then this thing takes up way too much space. Get that out of there. Go to grid formats, and the two screens, which we already did the one, right? So, but on your side, if you don't have these fields, inventory lookup is the one we did, but inventory search document, the one down below, right? That one there is the one that you would need if you were going to use it while you were like making a purchase order. And coming from the purchase order, you want to see those screens. You'd have to add them to this one down here, right? All right, not a webinar on screen design. So let's move on to other topics. And if anybody has any questions, I don't see any hands, and I don't see any questions in the chat. And hopefully nobody's like nodding off and drooling a bit, because this stuff can be pretty boring, but I guess we'll see, right? All right, so with the amount of data I have in here, I don't even know if this next piece is going to work well, but we're going to find out, right? Because we can go through the basics even if I can't get it to generate what I want to generate, right? So, all right, so auto utilities, we got auto purchasing, auto transfer, and we got auto min max, right? That's what we got here to play with. Now, auto PO and auto TO both are relying on the min max, right? So if we want to generate a purchase order, we've got to have a threshold to tell it when it should generate, right? That's what a min is typically. And a max can be either the ideal goal or a stretch goal. You got options there, right? But so before we even talk about auto min max, let's talk about basic auto PO, right? Which will also apply to auto TO, but let's just keep the conversation pretty simple at the moment. So if I go into merchandise inventory and I look at, let's see, what do we got here? What do we got? What can we play with that's easy and simple? All right, so I'm just gonna, I don't even know what these are. I don't know the data at all, but I'm just gonna pick on this PM belt here, right? So I'm gonna say, go to this item right here, which has a negative on hand. By the way, negative on hands, of course it's negative because it's right at the top of inventory, and I always test with it, right? But negatives aren't real, right? So if you have negative 10 and you have a min of 5, you're not gonna get 15, right? A negative 10 is 0, period, right? That's the way it works. So, but if we were to go into this item and we were to go to details and over to purchasing, we would see that there is a min and max field that we could just type in a min and max for, right? So if I said I need to keep 5 of these, but I mean a minimum is 5, and ideally I'd like to have 10 there on the shelf, right? Which is probably way too big. But anyway, this would start ordering at quantity 4. At quantity 4, it would be eligible to order when and if you ran the query to say, should I buy some, right? So if we save that, we know that this one item here, this item here will qualify for an auto PO, right? So let's go set this one up real fast and see if we get this one item to generate to a purchase order. Hopefully it will. We'll find out. Okay, so if I go to auto PO, now all three of these things work on this concept of profile, meaning that you get to build a profile for a certain vendor or department or whatever you want it to be, right? So I'm going to say at the bottom new, and it's going to open up a little profile thing, and I'm just going to say, PM belt. I'm just going to name it for the vendor code I'm going to try and play with here, right? And we'll walk through some of these fields here. So it's asking next here. I mean, you can set the default associate. This is just the buyer though, and if you're the buyer, then your name's going to be there already. But below that, it's asking how to set the PO number up, right? So I guess I'm kind of partial to using the vendor code, and I like the vendor code to be first, and then probably the date second. And I really don't care what time of day we generated the order. Now, if you're multi-store, you may want to consider having store in there too, right? Like you might want to say, I generated it from this vendor for that store on this date, right? Optionally, right? So I'm going to uncheck that for now, keep that simple. So that's what the PO number would look like when it generates, right? I'm going to say for our purposes, I don't think it matters really actually, but I'm going to say you can do it either way. If you got multiple stores, you can do a marked for multi-store, right? So you can generate one PO for all stores, or I could generate dropship single POs, which would generate, one PO per store, right? So it depends on how you do it. I mean, you're not going to change. If you have a distribution center, you're going to want to do multi marked for. If you don't have a distribution center and you're used to sending things directly to the store, then you're probably going to do dropship single store. I mean, so I'm going to say marked for multi-store PO, and we're going to say down below that, do we want any notes? No, I don't. Order day is today. Ship day can be, 7 days from today, right? Do I want a cancel date? We could turn it on, or we could just leave it turned off. I'm going to leave it turned off. I'm going to select everything up here, and we're going to on the bottom right go over to the next tab. So there's right here. There's 3 tabs, right? So we're going to go to analysis. And here, what level do we want to order to, right? So if min is the threshold, when it's going to get ordered, I could order back to min, or I could order all the way up to max, right? Or I could say, hey, you know what? The max is a stretch goal, and I want to order halfway between. I want to go 50% between min and max, right? So you can kind of use these any way you want to. I'm just going to go to max, I think, keep it simple. In inventory, there is a field that you can set up, and we did not set this up, so we're not going to check that, but to have a minimum order quantity. So I can order a given item in any quantity I want, except I have to order 36. If I order 36, I can order 37, but I can't order 30. That'd be like a minimum order quantity, right? Not a min, very different. They have the same name kind of. People get confused all the time, but we don't have a minimum order quantity on any item right now, right? So then this one right below it here, this one here, order items above min is worded terrible. I don't know why they had it worded better in the previous version, but it's basically saying minimum is not the threshold, right? So if it's below the order quantity you're ordering, like max, then order it. Now the problem with that is, with min and max, the way we've set it up, we got a 5, you got a 10. If I get down to 9, it's not going to order. If I get to 8, it's not going to order, right? I get down to 4, it's going to give me 6. So I'm not ordering onesies, right? That's going to order onesies. You check this off, and you got a max of 10, and you got 9 on hand. It's going to order 1. You're going to get a bunch of those, right? So typically, we don't use this except maybe going into Black Friday or going into our busiest season if we're a summer season thing. We're willing to do one round of orders where we're getting onesies and making sure our floor is fully stocked, right? But normally, no, we wouldn't. No, that would be dumb. So obviously, we need to filter this profile. If we name it, we got to filter it. So down here, we would go down and find our vendor code. And we would put in our vendor code. Wasn't it PM belt? Okay, embarrassing. We're gonna have to go check that out, aren't we? So committed while we're here, let's finish this part first, right? If we have any on sales orders, do we want to consider those? So if I have, 6 in stock, for instance, my min is 5, I've got 6, right? And 3 of those are committed to orders and they just came in for the orders, then I really don't have 6, I only have 3, right? So then I would qualify, even though I have 6 on hand, right? Transfers in, transfers out, right? TOs. So if you've got some on order coming to the warehouse and they're already on a transfer order out, committed to the store, then I don't need to buy more, right? So and in transit, if they're already been transferred and they're in transit, then count them as on hand, right? Exclude things past, yeah, that's always good, right? Nothing wrong with that. This thing down here, the PO date range, um, is is designed to limit POs. Like, so for instance, if this particular item we're ordering is qualifies, I got 3 on hand, my min is 5, I'm certainly deserved to get some, right? So unfortunately, though, I have a PO in the system for like next year that is for next summer, and it's a preseason order. Well, now if Auto PO can see that, it's going to say, look, you got 3, you got 7 more on order, you got plenty. You don't need any more. Of course, I'm not going to see that for, months and months. So this says, what POs can I consider when I go out to look at that, right? So here again, I would probably keep this nice and tight to either give me 60 days, start 30 days ago, or 90 days, start 30 days ago, depending on how far in the future you want to go, right? So that would go 2 months in the future, and 60 would only go a month, right? So that limits what POs it can see. I've never actually had to use the PO filter. I'm honestly don't see. I mean, if it's on order in the current time period, then don't reorder it. I don't know what else you'd really need there. I'm gonna hit save, and I'm gonna go see if I can figure out what I did wrong on the vendor code. Did I just read the wrong field? I don't even know. Let's go back and take a look, right? And I think that was the item. It was like the first one. Edit. Let's see what the vendor is here. Oh, it has no vendor. So I did read the wrong field. Oh, that's so weird. No, no, it's PM Belt. There it is, right? I knew I wasn't wrong. Weird. Um, okay, so I think I know what's going on. Return to item. Cancel. Okay, let's see if we can get back around to the regular merchandising menu and go to vendors and try searching for PM Belt here, right? Interesting. All right. So I think what's going on, and I'm not going to waste our time anymore on this because clearly there's a problem. My guess is it's inactive and we can't see it because it's inactive. And I could go get into the database and actually activate it on the back end if I had to. But this is a webinar and we're not going to waste time messing around with that stuff. That or it was deleted. What if I say new here? Let's see. Let's try.
It was on the screen right before you clicked new.
Really? No way.
Yeah.
I looked and I looked and I looked and I didn't see it. But then again, if you're holding a mouse, you're blind, right? That's kind of how it works. All right. So if I try and go back one page, it goes back many pages. Yeah, of course it does. All right. So thank you, by the way. It's nice when you guys have my back. I'm not lying. That's a really good thing. All right. So let's see if we can go a little slower here. Like it should be right in this neighborhood, right? There it is right there, right? Activate. See, I was right. It's deactive, right? Vendor. It was successful. All right. So now it exists again. Brought it back into the living world. So we'll go back to auto PO. We're going to calculate. Now at this point we have a couple of them actually. It looks like. So we got one we built, right? So we just need to finish it. We need to go back to edit, go back to our analysis, go back to here, and see if we can now find it because it was not in the club and now it's in the club, right? So we're going to click save. Okay. And now I'm going to just click, I'm going to roll the dice and click run. Hopefully this is a smaller vendor and will generate quickly. I don't know though. That's the part that scares me a little bit. Right. So this is pretty normal. Little yellow bar comes up on the top and it does a little happy dance. And thank you. It actually got done. So um, all three of these modules, Auto Min-Max, Auto PO, Auto TO, they basically work in two pieces. You go and do the configure, and then you go and do the review. So purchasing configuration, purchasing review, min-max configuration, min-max review. Same thing with TOs, right? So we're going to try review, and surprisingly, there's the item that I set that has the negative on hand, right? And so it wants to order 10. It wants to order 10. I said max, and it sees negative 10 as a 0, so it's just going to order 10, right? So we're going to say generate marked. Now, in real life, it's not going to be one item on the screen. It could be, in which case you probably would cancel here. You wouldn't continue. Most time, if you only have one item, it's not worth making the order, right? But you could, if you wanted to unmark these, like if you wanted to stop an item from making it to the PO. But if you think about this process, you could have hundreds on the screen. And are you going to scroll through all these? Most of my clients don't. A few people like that, and some people like it a lot, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're doing like a generation that's not, say, vendor based, to say it's department based, and let's say you have, you know, 8 different vendors in there, then you've got 8 different vendors' data mixed here, and you're just about to generate 8 POs. Now they could be all small POs; they could be reviewed very quickly, but the point is that there might be a lot going on this screen, right? So generally speaking, we would click generate marked and let it just open the floodgates and let them fly, right? And then we could hop back to the POs themselves and review each one just as if we were writing them ourselves, right? Which is something we do normally anyway, right now, right? So if we go back now, and we go to store operations, purchasing lookup, and we hit search. There should be a funny looking PO at the top there with that complicated naming structure, right? Right. So the vendor code followed by 1010, which is October 10th, followed by the sequential number, and this is a VM, so I don't do much here. So my sequence is on 7. There's 5 and 6 right below it, right? So that is exactly how it works right there. So I'm going to click OK, and we're going to see a PO with one item on it, right? Sometime in our lifetime. There we go. Beautiful. So, and at this point, this is just a PO, right? So you could click edit, you could go in here and you could start removing items. You could go to choose edit here. You could go to the magnifying glass, start adding items, right? So you could just hop out here and do whatever you needed to do to this PO. And that seems to be, at least in my experience, the most productive way um, to handle these things, right? So I could go out here and add some more items if I wanted to, and then say return document. So there's always items that are new that aren't on min-max yet. There's always items that are on min-max that are old that you're kind of questioning, where should I really order that, right? And you want to knock them off sometimes. So, you know, I mean, this doesn't, auto PO does not replace the buyer. It just assists the buyer in gathering information quickly and letting the buyer make a quicker, maybe more accurate choice, right? That's all it does. So, um, so that's basically auto PO, right? In a nutshell. Now let's see if we can tackle the auto min max. Now, auto min max will go slow on. Auto min max has been known to hurt people. Um, so let's just see if we can get our head wrapped around it. Of course, we got nothing there. That's good. All right, so let's click new. Let's dip our toe in, right? And let's I don't even know that vendor we did. I doubt is going to be any good, right, for this. I'm just trying to figure out, or in my mind, which vendor to do, right? Because whatever vendor we pick, it's going to be too big, right? So I guess we'll try. I don't know. Let's try Wrangler, I guess. But that's a big vendor, right? And it worries me that with that you could have a lot. So analysis dates. So in here, before we even start setting the dates up, we should just get an understanding of what we're doing, right? Um, Basically, we need to take a sample of data. Typically, the sample would be like the last 90 days. It would be a current date range that's big enough to be solid, if you know what I mean. Like you can't, if you did 1 week and you had like one bad or one really good day in that week, that one day could affect the week totals greatly, right? But one day out of 90 isn't gonna, it's a drop in the bucket, right? So you want a big sample that's big enough to be constant, right? And solid, but small enough to be current, right? And relevant. And it depends on your business. If you're heavily seasonal, like I set this up for some guys up in Alaska, some pretty sharp guys up there, and they just run this for the entire last season, so they can see what they need to order for this season. That works, right? So it just depends on your business and how you want to handle that, right? So I have to go back and get some older data. If we're going to get any numbers here, we got to go back and get some older data, right? And I think Amy has a question here, it looks like, which is pretty exciting. Thank you. And so what are we going to do? We're going to do a specific data range, and we're going to jump back, a little bit in time here. All right, we'll say, yeah. Do I feel like going that far? So we'll say November 1, right? To, and we'll hop back a little bit, and we'll say, yeah, January 31, right? Okay. We'll select everything here, and so we're looking good over there. On the right, we need to add a formula, right? So the formula here is where it starts to hurt people's head. So we're going to click new. We're going to put a name on this one, right? And formula type. I'm not fond of annualized. Annualized hurts my head a lot. Days of supply is pretty solid and pretty easy to get your head around. But annualized, like I'm looking at like November, December, and January. So it's going to be basically, to annualize that, it's to multiply it by 4. That's 3 months. There's 12 months in a year, right? So it just, annualizing it changes all the numbers to extrapolate the same number up from your sample, but at a year. So I just find that very hard to wrap my head around, and I have not had great success with it, and I don't know anybody that has, actually. So now, the filter is coming at the bottom, and we could exclude items that we don't do. Like, we could have a marker in there that says this item is not to be reordered in Auto Min Max, right? But now, it's also fair to say that if you're like a jean store and you carry Wrangler or Levi or some of these bigger brands, that you would carry everybody's size. Like, you'd have at least one on hand, right? So that's what we're trying to decide here. So if we choose lesser than, it'll let it go to 0, and you won't get a min on some items because they don't warrant it. I mean, there are definitely sizes in men's jeans for sure that you maybe sell one a year, right? Or one every 2 or 3 years. And then there are sizes you sell the heck out of, right? So I'm probably going to say greater than, and I'm going to say 1 over here. So if I sell one a year, it's going to say, your rate of sale is 365th, basically, right? So if I said give me a 4-week supply, it's still going to be 365th. That's going to be 0, right? It's going to be 0. If we choose the greater of 0 or 1, it's going to be 1. You follow? So then here, days of supply, what we really need to figure out is, how often do I reorder these products? So let's say I order them monthly. So let's say on the first of the month, I do my Wrangler order. And let's say it takes 2 weeks to get here, right? So the minimum would be 6-week supply, right? So if the item in question falls below the min level so that it qualifies for reorder on the 2nd, but I did my order yesterday on the 1st, it's now got to wait a month before you get reanalyzed, and 2 more weeks to get the product, right? So now, if it's one that only has one, then you're basically out of stock for 6 weeks. But if you sell it once a year, the odds are with you that nobody's going to come in and ask for it. Of course, Murphy's Law, they will. But all right, so I'm going to say 42 days, and I'm going to probably round that off. I wish business was even, but it's not. So you probably need to pad that number, 42, either go up to 50 or 45 or somewhere in there. I'm just going to say 50. They'll give me a 7 weeks plus a day, right? And then down here, the max, say, where I'm going to leave it on greater than, and I'm going to say, bump that up to 75. And again, if it's at the other end of the spectrum and really only need one, I'm only going to get one, right? Now, there are 2 other factors that can mess with our heads here. One of them is on the screen, and I'm going to take advantage of the fact that it's on the screen to show you this one, at least, and we'll look at the other one in a bit. But include out-of-stock days, right? So if we do that, it's going to lower the rate of sale. So let's say that an item in 3 months was out of stock for 2 of the months, right? Now, we sold, 5 of these things, and it was only in stock, though, for 30 days. Well, then it's going to say, you sold 5 in 30 days as opposed to 5 in 90 days. You see what I mean? That's a higher rate of sale, right? So if 2 items both sold 5, but they get different min-max levels, it's because one of them was out of stock or is a new item. And that's the other one. The first received date can affect that too, which we can look at in inventory. All right, so then down here, the item filter, right? We want to go grab what we want to grab and filter by. So I guess we'll try Wrangler. I'm sure I'm hurting myself on this one. All right, so now in here, I could continue to grab things, right? So I want to point out that if I wanted to grab the department code, or if I wanted to grab one of these fields, you know what I mean? I could filter by other things here if I need to include or exclude things, right? So, but I don't know that I need to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and say done. And we have a profile, right? So we're going to click save. and I have no idea if this is going to actually work in the time frame we have, right? So I'll give it a shot. Do I wish to continue? No, I actually don't want to continue. I want to show you another trick real quick because I want to be playing around while that's going. And so I'm actually going to back out to the main menu. I don't know if everybody knows this about PRISM, but you have so many licenses. You can only use the number of licenses you have, which is appropriate for any software, right? But um, they did allow us to use the same license more than once. So I'm gonna on a menu, not on the main, not before you log in, and not when you're on a transaction. Because if you're on a PO and you do this, and then you close the PO on one, it closes on both, right? So you want to be on a menu and then right-click this tab and say duplicate, and it'll give you the same license, right? So now both these are under the same license, but I can do two things at once or three things at once. So I can now go back into my AutoMin Max, go back to my AutoMin Max here, say calculate, load my profile, and fire that off, right? Just say run and let it go and see what happens here on that. But I also have the ability to then, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so I'm hoping that this gets through, and I don't know, honestly. I'm very worried about that. So now what's going to happen, hopefully, is if we go back to here and I go to AutoMin Max, Review Min Max, let's see if I can see anything over here. I mean, I certainly can't see the numbers yet. I doubt no, it's not even close. Yeah. So I just want to see the screen though. That's all I want to see. So we can see what we're going to be getting into, and hopefully we can see some numbers in a minute. Right, there we go. So right, so you see over here, you got like a min and a max, and you got a new min and a new max, right? And that's what's going to happen here is that we're going to get the generated numbers in these columns here, and we're going to be able to see them next to, right, next to our current numbers. I hate when it slides over like that. It's really annoying. Nice. Okay. Oh, there we go. At least we can kind of see what's going on, right? So, um, again, you can design this screen, and it's not a bad move to put like your first received date in here, right? Um, I mean, if we analyzed the last 90 days and first received date said September 25th, then we would know that it's not being evaluated at a full 90 days, right? And the problem with new items a lot of times is that they're new. So they're popular for the first few weeks. And then AutoMin Max sees that, thinks you can maintain that rate of sale over like years. And no, you can't actually, right? There's that one opportunity when it's brand new and everybody's excited about it and it really sells well for a while, then it falls into its regular pattern, whatever that is, right? Um, so you got to be a little careful when you see a first received date that's really recent. And if it's not the first received date, then you were out of stock. If you know you were out of stock for part of that time period, that's what's driving the min max up. And most buyers know at a glance, they do this all the time. They know whether the min max is true or not, right? They look at all the min maxes and they agree with most of them, but they see an odd one and they know it was out of stock. Then they just go in there, right? You just go in here in these fields and you just change it, right? Like if this had generated, like 15 here, right, or something wacky, right, and we knew that was not doable, right, then we would just go in and change it, right? We would just cut it back down, right? We would just go back and say, no, no, I see that we sell more than the 2 and the 4 we have, but I'm going to have to go down to say 5 and maybe 7 or something, right? You can fix these. That's the whole point. Now let's see if we're even to a point where we can even. No, we're still going. That's what I was worried about, right? With this kind of data and this mountain of data. This doesn't take a long time, but it takes longer than probably a a webinar can support, right? I've seen it take 20 minutes, 25 tops, but I don't know that I'm worried that we won't get done with this in time to get this thing finished, right? So in here though, if we had numbers in here, and I can throw numbers in here for us to just play with, right? Now, I'll throw some numbers in here just to have some numbers in there. That's probably enough, actually. Um, and if we liked those numbers, right, we would come down here and we would click update, and we would say, well, we're going to update, right? So typically we update all. In that, it is a very good chance that an item that had a high min max, but it's waned, its sales aren't what they used to be, and the min max has come down or has even gone to zero in some cases. Because if we chose lesser of instead of greater of, for like other items, I would. For like certain shoes and certain jeans, you really need to have one of everything in stock, right? Even that wacky size. But for other items, you know what? If they don't sell like I'm thinking like a national park and they sell magnets and this one magnet just doesn't sell well, right? So then let the min max go to zero, let it fall off the wagon, right? So if you don't update all, if you only update the things that get quantities, then that one that didn't get a min max won't get reset to zero. You follow? So, you know, usually for me, it's all items. You can also create a company min max if you want to have them combined or not. Then you just click update, right? And then what that does is it moves whatever's in these new columns here over to the current columns, right? That's what it does. So that you know, the 5 and the 7 there would overwrite the 2 and the 4. You follow? So uh, so typically you go generate these things and it's still going. Yeah, of course it is. Um, and then you review them. And then fix what's wrong. Use your good judgment. I mean, buyers actually probably know. I would say, in my experience, buyers can usually set them in max out by themselves by hand. 85% of the time, they'll be dead on the money. But you know, you always know the best sellers, you know the worst sellers, but that middle section, right? There's items that will surprise you that you didn't see coming. There'll be just a few items you'll look at and you go, really? All right. If that's what the min max, if that's what the sales history says, I'm going to go with it, right? So so be careful and review your data. That being said, of course, I got to add, don't bite off more than you can chew. That's been for me the biggest thing that causes min max to fail. Is like I've had people say, "Oh, you know what? This is so cool. I love this. I'm just going to do the whole store." Okay, you can't do the whole store in one setting. You can't review that much data, right? You're a human being. So so pick something small that you know really well, right? Something small and set them in max, either manually or use auto min max. I like to set it manually first, run auto PO for a few weeks, a month, and then go run auto min max on it. Because as you run auto PO, you're going to find you set it too low or too high or whatever. You're going to change the min maxes, and you're going to have a set of min maxes that actually work, right? So you can run auto PO every 2 weeks or every month, whatever you're doing, and it's keeping the things in stock, right? Just to, you know, you always got a few left. You can't be just in time. I don't think that's real, but you know, you're close, right? That's as good as you're going to get. So, and once you've got a solid min max, you run auto min max on that. And if you don't like it, you go back, you tweak the formula, right? And don't get tied to like 6 weeks supply. You know, if you have to bump that 42 days up to 75 or down to 30 to get the numbers you know are working, right? Don't get tied to the numbers too much. Be more tied to the results, if that makes sense. Um, but then tweak the formula, and it's a lot easier to tweak the formula when you have a set of min maxes that you can compare to. Because when that new min and the new max generates, you know, how do you know it's right or wrong? I mean, buyers kind of have a good feeling for that, but it's really nice if you have a set of working ones to compare it to, right? Because that'll give you you know, a yardstick to measure it with, right? Because writing that formula is a bit tricky, if you see what I mean. So um, that's the path I would probably go most times. Once you get one set working with auto min max, then you expand that to the next set, and you just keep taking little bites, little departments, little vendors, whatever, little sections of the inventory, maybe a department and a vendor. Like with Wrangler, it would, for me, it would definitely be a Wrangler and a department. It wouldn't do all of Wrangler, but I don't even know the departments in this data, so it would be really hard to do that, right? Okay, wow, that's exciting. Okay, so now we're going to go options, and we're going to say review, min-max review, and let's see here. We're now going to go ahead and grab Wrangler, right? And see if we can actually get any data. And okay, so now right there, okay, that makes sense because I think that's actually the warehouse. So like if we hop around here a little bit and see, I don't even know these stores very well, but yeah, it's very possible that my data is just terribly bad here, isn't it? So I'm getting 1 and 1. You see that? Everybody see that I'm getting 1 and 1 on everything. So it's taking the bottom end, right? It's not seeing sales. So it's possible that I've just got really, really bad data here, and I'm not getting anything that's reasonable, right? But there you go, right? So now if we but let's take the terrible data that I got, and let's actually say I want to update this. So I want to update this all to all locations, and I don't care about a company min-max, but yeah, I don't think so. All right, so I'm going to say update, and when do we wish to continue? Yes. Uh, and it's doing the little happy dance with the yellow bar again. This one shouldn't take too long though. It's just writing the numbers to the database, right? That's all it's doing. So it shouldn't take as long as it did a minute ago, right? But it would be really cool to be able to generate. So while that's going, let's hop over to our other session, right? Let's go back to auto tools and auto purchasing and say calculate purchasing and say we want to, oh, we've got a Wrangler. Look at that. That's even better, right? So vendor, this all looks good. Marked for multi-store. All stores are checked off. We're going to max. Anything here? What else we want to look at? Okay, so no, so description 3 test. That's wacky. So we're going to click edit here, and we're going to go back to analysis, and we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get the vendor code in there, right? Hopefully everybody's still awake. um, all right, so we're going to go get the vendor code, and we're going to put our vendor code in there. And we're going to see what's on the next screen here. We're not evaluating anything committed, and we've got a good date range on that. So we're going to click save, and then we're going to poke our head nose back in this side here, and it's going to say it's finished. I'm going to say okay, and then we're going to pop back over here and say run that, and yeah, we don't care, and see what we get, right? All right, and it started, right? But you see how many stores we have, right? So there's it's got to check every item in a big vendor for every store location, right? So this is a little bit more uh, real life, right? Um, some of my VMs have a data set that's so small that everything happens so fast that it gives you a false sense of how fast it can be, right? But it's in real life, you know, this stuff takes a few minutes, and it's not terrible. Actually, 2 versions ago, it was really brutal. The architecture was such that it had to drag the data from the server, process it, push it back to the server. It was just a early version that had some weird network architectures that was common for the 1980s, but we're not in the 1980s anymore. So, but it would take to just do a simple min-max calculation. It could take an hour and a half, and Prism has never ever taken that long. Uh, the architecture now is pretty much everything's being processed in the server, and we're just seeing the results on the screen, right? It's just refreshing back with the browser, right? So it's actually pretty fast. So while that's going, let's pop back here and let's talk about compare and contrast the other auto utility, right? keep pushing forward here, and we'll check that in a minute. So you see that auto transfer is very, very similar, right? It's got the same profile you got to set up, right? Now, in here, what would the profile be? Would it be Wrangler? No, I don't think so. If I have a central distribution point, like a warehouse, right? And of course it finished. It looks like. All right, so let's go to options and let's go to purchasing review. And yeah, so we can see here what's being generated for each location, right? And you see what I mean about reviewing like a mountain of data here, right? You could go through and uncheck these. On the other hand, I think it's probably wiser to just click generate marked, right? And say, okay, and then take a look at the actual PO itself, right? Because I think that's easier mentally for me to work, right? Yes, he's really going to toy with me here, right? If I go on with the auto TO thing, it's going to get done, right? All right. We'll check in a minute. All right. So in here, it's not going to be it's going to be more like Monday and Thursday. You know what I mean? As far as the profiles go. Now there has been in my experience some people that have different kinds of product. Like if you have like t-shirts and you have tennis shoes, it's really hard to pull those two at the same time. You need a flatbed cart for tennis shoes. And you need like a giant fabric basket for t-shirts, right? Um, so you might say filter this auto TO run for soft lines and filter this one for hard lines, if you see what I mean. But other than that, I don't know that there's much filtering going on here, right? So you would call this whatever you want to call it, right? Maybe there's a Monday pull and a Thursday pull, right? And then decide whether you want to generate a held slip or a transfer order, right? Um, and then yeah, I don't think I care about the rest of this stuff. I don't have any notes. I don't have any dates I want to mess with. All stores, right? Um, source location is the warehouse, right? So this big hairy dog here is the source location, right? So distribution, right? So here again, do I hold anything back? And the min max is what I was thinking of, but the do I hold anything back? So if the warehouse also is a store and it sells like web products out of the warehouse, I don't think I want to let all 100% go to the field, right? So, but in this case, it's a warehouse, so available to send is everything. Um, right, so same switch here. We're not going to do even distribution. That's wacky. That's like when you close a store and you're pushing it out to all the other stores. This one here turns off the min, right? We already looked at that. Here's your min, your max, your percentage between, right? Then there's your filter. If we do need to filter, we could filter by departments or vendors or whatever we want to do, right? And then committed. So this is committed on the source, right? So do we want to consider things committed? Well, transfer orders generally in or out or one and done, right? And on the source, we wouldn't have a sales order or probably anything coming in transit, right? We might have a purchase order, but I don't know if you want to consider it, right? So, um, yeah, I'm going to say move on. Committed destination. Well, it's possible that these stores could have sales orders, and if they have items that committed to the sales order, that means they need more to fill their min max, right? Again, though, if I generated a sales order, a transfer order last week, and I didn't fill it, it's done. I'm not going to refill that one from last week. I'm just going to move forward, and then I don't care about POs. So I'm going to click save on that, and then we're going to go see what's going on the other side here, right? Really? Oh, right. So I think it just generated, right? So let's go back to here, and let's go back to here, and let's go here and see if we got one. Wow, you guys, we're dropping like flies, aren't we? Now we started with 9, we're down to 6, but this is pretty boring stuff. I get it, right? So, I mean, rightly so. Um, okay, so come on, there we go. So there's our PO, right? And it's still got multiple pages, and what we also have, if I click on one of these, we have allocations here, right? So you can see that we're ordering for all locations. See what I mean? So so it's ordering 8 or 9 because someone had one or someone didn't have one, right? But you see what I mean? It's ordering for all locations. And at this point, if we wanted to, we could actually generate a transfer order, which this is not about generating TOs from purchase orders, but you have that option. So if you were to tweak this and adjust these quantities, which you can do, then you said, okay, I want that to be the plan. Now, if you got heavy min max, you don't need to generate a transfer order. If these are new items that have never had a min max and you want to specify the distribution plan, then you would generate a transfer order, right? And they would be notified when they receive it that there's a pending transfer order on the voucher. Okay, so we generated a big PO. Let's go back to over here. Right, so then let's see, let's say run and say, yep. And of course, yeah, I don't know. Let's see what happens if we get anything at all, right? Probably should have, front loaded an item. I don't know. We might get one, but I mean, if the min is 1 and we have 1 on order for everywhere, we may not get any, right? I don't know. So, but you see the consistency, and I do appreciate that the Retail Pro has been very, very consistent in the way that these auto utilities work. It's nice that, you do the config, you save the config, it's out there, you can run it again and again and again and again. And if you have your dates set dynamically, like 30 days ago, they just move through time with you, right? So ideally, in a perfect world, yeah, you'd have your auto PO plan. You do these vendors the first week of the month, you do these vendors the second week of the month, so on and so forth, right? You'd have, and I know that there's already a plan. Everybody has a plan. Everybody orders in certain patterns. Sometimes it gets a little haphazard, but having auto PO can help you nail that down, right? It can help you get a better pattern for that kind of stuff. So so with auto TO, with auto transfers, the other considerations are, um, how do you pick this product, right? So when it generates a TO, you can print that out and you can print it out by location. And that gets into doc design. This is not a webinar on doc design, but I have some doc designs, and if we need if you need to, we can get together and I can tweak that. Or we could have generated held transfer slips, right? And I have another client who likes the held slips, and they generate the held slips, and they like it very much. And I generated a report for them that would let them print out all those held slips in a big giant like report, and then they then take that and they go out and they pick the items, and when they pick the items, they have a scanner. So they're not you can, with a transfer order or a slip, you can just unhold the slip and update it, right? But how do we know that they picked the right item? So that's always been a concern when you're auto generating transfers, is that the people that are in the field, they see the top one, it says it's an extra large, so they grab 2, and the one underneath it is not an extra large. It's a small, by accident, got in the wrong stack. We didn't look at the size on that second item, so we didn't transfer 2 extra larges. We transferred an extra large and a small, right? So if they have a scanner with them and they just scan all the tags that they pull, which is faster than reading, I'm gonna say. Anyway, then they upload that to the transfer, and then I wrote a report for these guys that compared the held transfer slip to the actual transfer slip and showed them where they made mistakes, right? So that's something that I have written. If anybody's interested in that, we could get together on a call and we could look at that too. But that's more about reporting than it is about auto utilities. But
Can you generate multiple transfer orders per PO, or can you only have one transfer order per PO?
you could do that. It wouldn't be a problem. I'm not sure why you would do it. That's the question for me. But yeah,
Like
so
for different locations?
oh no, A transfer order has all locations on it. One transfer order has every store in it, right? So like if we leave that there and we go take a look at all right, so we'll just this one here. We'll just use this one right here. We'll say uh, auto generate a transfer order, right? Okay, come on, you can do it. It's not that hard. I know there's a lot of items here. Okay, generated, right? Boom. So let's go look at that transfer order that we just generated, right? Good question, actually. I'm going to say thank you for that. So um, sometimes I make assumptions about what we all know, and they're not always accurate, right? So it's better if people just ask, right? Uh, come on. Okay, search. There should be one right here on the top that I just generated, right? It's pissed off because I'm running at that other thing in the background, and it's just a little VM, right? I mean, this is there's my machine in the background, right? And this is just a little fake VM machine here, right? Come on, it doesn't take that long to display a list of documents. See, now it's going to make me look dumb, right? And we're still going over there. It's probably why it's taking so long because we're doing something. We're generating a document over here, and maybe it's generating another document over here. I don't know. All right, let's see what else do I have. Can I? Okay, interesting. All right, now it's going to be nice to me. All right, I'll pull it on another machine over on the right here, checking to see if I could get that one to go. And of course now it sees that, I'm guessing, and it's messing with me. But all right, so if we take a look at this now, right? Mm, 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 come on. All right, so anyway, you see what's going on here, right? So you can see for any given item, I have access to all the stores, right? So let's see here. What do we got on the top? Let's just seems like there should be more items on there than that, but all right, let's click edit and let's hop down into it, right? So you see right here, if I wanted to say send two to this location, and then I wanted to send some more to another location, right? It would just be a matter of putting the allocation in there, right? So I can see all the stores at once, right? Now, if you're talking about slips, the actual transfer document itself, right? Then yes, Auto TO can generate multiple transfers, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
But a transfer order, I can't see why you'd need more than one, honestly. Could you? So, for instance, uh, to to um, to validate your exact question, I generated a transfer order. I realized I totally screwed up on one of the items or multiple items. So I deleted that transfer order. I went back upstream to the PO. I fixed the PO and got it all dialed in the way I wanted. And then I generated the transfer order again, right? So yeah, I could generate as many transfer orders from a PO as I want, as I need to. And there certainly is a big advantage to doing it from the PO versus the voucher. Um, and that is that you could receive it and you could generate a TO from the voucher, but it wouldn't have the quantities in it. But you could allocate. I think you can allocate it on a voucher. But the problem with the voucher is you can't transfer it to yourself. So at the PO level, you can allocate to yourself, and that doesn't get pushed to the TO. But on the voucher, it wouldn't let you allocate to yourself. So you would just not be able to keep any at the warehouse, if you see what I mean. So the PO is definitely, if you're doing an allocation for a new product and playing around with that, you want to do it on the PO. And then if it's got to be a marked for PO, multi-store marked for, and then do your allocation. Then there's allocation patterns and there's item allocation. There's a lot more there, but this isn't really a webinar on that. But that's what you do, is you would set your allocation pattern and then generate the TO. And then the items that were staying at the warehouse, like if you ordered 100 and you were keeping 10 at the warehouse, then 90 would get allocated out to the transfer order and 10 would just be received and stay there, right? So anyway, yeah, that's a transfer order. Now, had we gone the other way, then in store operations, transfers, transfer slips. Actually, we'd go to, yeah, we'd go to not slips. We'd go to, if I could get my mouse to cooperate, pending transfer slips, right? That's where we'd go. We would have generated some held slips like that, and then you could take each held slip and you could say print that, or we could run a report on it. I would choose to run a report on it, but if it's a simple situation, you got 2 of these, that's all you got, then maybe you just go here and you say print these, right? This one actually unheld itself. I would leave it on hold, and I would print from the held menu, right? And drop a copy of that, right? And then that's probably not the best design, but okay. Right. So it's not the best design. It's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad. Right. But there's a printout of what I should go get. Right. And if I get that as I go and I scan it into a little handheld scanner, then I can upload what I scanned and transfer what I actually picked, as opposed to assuming I picked the right thing, if you see where I'm going. Right. So that thing should have just generated yet another transfer order, right? Like we want to go play with another transfer order. But now I think I've covered pretty much all of these auto utilities, and we have like a few minutes left, and I turn into a pumpkin. Does anybody have any other questions though about any of this, about anything in Retail Pro related or unrelated to auto utilities, I guess? Since you guys have been excellent and hung with me at this entire process, right?
When you were calculating the min max,
Mhm.
um, and you selected all your stores, it doesn't set the min max the same for every location, correct? It uses
No,
each
no.
location's sales data?
That's exactly right. Yes. So
Okay.
if we had, I was going to draw a picture, but I don't think I need to. You seem to have a good grasp on it. Yeah. So if the big store sold, let's just say we analyzed 90 days, the big store sold 180, the little store sold 45, right? So the big store is selling 2 a day, the little store is selling 1/2 a day. You follow? So if I ask for 30-day supply, the big store is going to get 60, and the little store is going to get 15 as their min.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's the part that hurts people. That's the part that really, because then you combine that with the out of stock thing and the first receive date, and you see that 2 items sold the same quantity, but one's got a higher min, and then you're trying to figure out why. That kind of stuff can really hurt your head a little bit. At the end of the day, though, you got to trust the buyer knows what they're doing. I mean, I've worked with some really good buyers when I was in retail many years ago now, and I don't have that knack, but I have great respect for people that do. You know, it was always a little embarrassing when I would set the department up on a new store exactly as the planogram said, and then a merchant would come in behind me and in 20 minutes would make it look twice as good, right? So it's all right. It's all good. Numbers are my friends. All right. Anything else, or are we going to adjourn for the day?
I was just gonna tell you, hi Jeff,
Hey,
that it wasn't boring, that it was really good, and we appreciate you. So
well, I don't know. Based on how many people dropped off, I'm not sure. I think you're being very generous.
Well, I lost my voice, so I sound like crazy, but I just wanted to stop in and say thanks because we
Well, thank you.
appreciated it.
No, thank you very much, Ashley, and thank you for all your hard work and your successful rollout. And there's been a lot of buzz here in the office about how cool you guys are. So thank you. So.
Well, you guys are awesome too. So thanks. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you very much for everybody attending, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up then and tell you to have a great rest of your day. All right. See you guys. Bye.